Ashley and Julian have divorced 99 times. Each time, he would quietly wait during the cooling-off period for her various humble attempts to win him back. Only when she finally managed to appease him would he allow her to withdraw the application. On the 99th divorce application, Ashley stood up, and the staff member behind her curiously asked, "This time, when will you come to withdraw the application?" She raised her eyes to look at his indifferent back in front of her, telling herself in her heart, it won't be revoked. After the 1-month cooling-off period, she and he officially divorced. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The wind outside the Civil Affairs Bureau was a bit cold. Ashley had just stepped out when she saw Julian get into that black Maybach without even a glance back. Not sparing her a single look, Ashley walked slowly along the sidewalk, her heart feeling as if it had been torn open, letting the cold wind rush in. Screech! A piercing screech of brakes suddenly sounded behind her. Before she could react, a forceful impact knocked her to the ground. Her knees burned with pain, and her palms were scraped raw. Ashley looked up and saw Julian's gang jumping out of the car. Oh no, we've hit the sister-in-law. Stop calling her that. Someone poked him from behind. They're already divorced. Julian hasn't agreed to withdraw the application yet. Ashley tried to push herself up from the ground, but her knees gave out. Through her disheveled hair, she saw the Maybach's rear window halfway down, Julian's stern profile faintly visible in the shadows. "Julian," someone ran to ask for instructions. "Should we take the sister-in-law to the hospital first, or go straight to the gathering?" Time seemed to stand still. Ashley stared fixedly at the car window, her heart pounding painfully. "To the party," Julian's voice came through the window, cold as ice. 3 words, light as a feather, yet they pierced her heart like a knife. The Maybach sped away, exhaust fumes blasting in her face. Gritting her teeth, she slowly got up and limped her way home. Every step sent a searing pain through her knee, but it was nothing compared to the gaping, bloody hole in her heart. After limping back home, Ashley, the first thing she did was pack her bags. She dug out all the evidence of her love for him over the years, the jewelry he casually tossed to her, the lighter he once used that she secretly kept, the 999 paper stars she folded for him. One by one, she threw them all into the trash, until she pulled out a craft paper envelope from the very back of the drawer. This wasn't the first time she had seen it, yet her fingers still trembled as she opened it again. It was a love letter. Julian's love letter to her. "You brought me breakfast again today. But you don't know I actually woke up at 5, just to watch you tiptoeing to leave the lunchbox by the window. Your handwriting in the love letter is terrible, but I've already kept it safe. I'll tease you about it on our 50th wedding anniversary. That red dress you're wearing today looks beautiful, but I don't want others to see it. This is the 3rd year you've been pursuing me, and I almost couldn't resist saying yes, but then I thought, let's wait a little longer. Let me enjoy the feeling of being chased by you a bit more." Word by word, each sentence pierced her heart with unbearable pain. If she hadn't accidentally stumbled upon these love letters a few days ago, she wouldn't have believed that Julian, who had been so cold to her all these years, actually liked her too. The first time she met Julian was at the university's opening ceremony. As the student representative giving the speech, he was as aloof and noble as the moon in the sky. With just that one glance, she fell for him. Many Julian had admirers, but Ashley was the most relentless one. She brought him breakfast, even though he never ate it. She memorized all his class schedules to stage accidental meetings. She even scaled the school wall to buy medicine when he got injured playing basketball, only to break her wrist in the process. For years, 460 days, shadowing him like a persistent little tail, before she finally captured this moon of hers. Even after they got together, he remained indifferent, never reciprocating an ounce of affection. When they married, it was she who proposed, yet she cherished every moment without complaint. But just 3 years into their marriage, he had already brought up divorce 99 times. The first time was because the dishes she cooked were too salty, and he said, "You can't even get such a simple thing right." The second time was because she wore a dress he didn't like. Immersive translate. The 98th time was because he had set a rule that she could only send 10 messages a day, and she accidentally sent one extra, "good night," every time. She would humbly beg him not to divorce her. On the 99th time, she knelt in the study all night before he reluctantly agreed to withdraw the application. That night, she accidentally discovered the craft paper envelope locked in the safe. Inside were Julian's love letters to her, written from the very first year she pursued him. He had liked her all along. Turns out, every time he brought up divorce, he just wanted to see her beg him tearfully not to leave. He enjoyed her love but treated her sincerity as a toy for his amusement. The next day, Julian brought up divorce for the 100th time. The reason was that she ate a cookie in his car and left crumbs. Ashley looked at the man she had loved for 7 years and suddenly felt he was a stranger. This time, she didn't want to play this game with him anymore, so this time, she wouldn't stoop to humble pleading as he wished. It was completely over between them. She wiped away her tears forcefully and continued packing her belongings. But halfway through, she realized her mother's keepsake was missing. It was a very old silver necklace, the only thing her mother had left her. Ashley searched the entire walk-in closet and even checked under the bed, but the silver necklace seemed to have vanished into thin air. She sat on the floor, her fingers unconsciously gripping the hem of her shirt. The study had been empty except for Julian, who had come in earlier. Thinking of the party location she had overheard at the entrance of the Civil Affairs office, she bit her lip, grabbed her coat, and walked out the door. Outside the private room at the club, the laughter inside was already clearly audible through the thick door. I bet 5 days. Ashley definitely won't last more than 5 days before begging Julian to take her back. 5 days is too long. Everyone knows Ashley can't live without Julian. I bet 3 days. I bet 1 day. Last time, didn't she fall to her knees begging Julian not to divorce her that very night? Julian, how many days are you betting? The private room fell silent for a moment. Julian sat at the center, his slender fingers holding a whiskey glass, his gaze inscrutable. Just as he was about to speak, Ashley swung the door open and declared word by word, I bet a lifetime. Ashley had barely finished saying I bet a lifetime when a soft, melodious voice overpowered hers. Sorry, I'm late. Camille walked in wearing high heels, instantly capturing everyone's attention. She smiled and linked arms with Julian, leaning affectionately against his shoulder. Ashley watched their intimate posture, trembling as she closed her eyes. Camille is Julian's childhood sweetheart, and from their courtship to marriage, she has persistently haunted their lives like a lingering ghost, yet Julian never drives her away, even tacitly allowing her to cross boundaries time and again. Once, Ashley had her suspicions about Julian's feelings for Camille, but it wasn't until she saw those love letters that she realized Camille was merely a tool he used to provoke her jealousy. He relished the sight of her jealousy and love. Julian finally noticed Ashley standing at the door, frowning slightly. What are you doing here? Ashley tightened her grip on the bag strap, realizing he hadn't heard a word she said earlier. My necklace at home is missing, she said, looking straight at him. I came to ask if you've seen it. Julian visibly froze for a moment, then his eyes darkened slightly. Just for this, what else? Ashley retorted. What did you think I came for? His expression instantly darkened. Ashley was all too familiar with that expression. Every time she didn't follow the script he had in mind, he would show this displeased look. You mean that silver necklace, right? Camille suddenly chimed in. Last time I mentioned I liked it, Julian gave it to me. She tilted her head, feigning innocence. But I accidentally lost it after I got back. Ashley, her head buzzed as blood rushed to her temples. How dare you give away my things? Just a necklace. Julian cut her off coldly. Why make such a fuss? I'll get you 10 more another day. That was my mother's keepsake, Ashley almost shouted, her voice trembling. The private room fell silent instantly. Julian clearly froze for a moment, but quickly regained his usual indifferent expression. It's already lost now. What do you want me to do? Stop making a fuss. Ashley bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. She had already told him it was her mother's keepsake, yet he still thought she was being unreasonable. Julian, is this how you show your affection for me? After realizing she could never get the necklace back, Ashley turned and walked away, afraid she might break down if she stayed even a second longer. The sound of a chair scraping came from behind as Julian stood up. That's enough, let's go. He followed her. As she stepped out of the club, the night wind stung Ashley's cheeks. She kept her head down and walked quickly, not wanting them to see her reddened eyes. Suddenly, there was a strange creak from above. Ashley hadn't even processed the sound when she heard someone scream behind her, watch out. Ashley looked up and saw a huge billboard crashing down toward them. In the blink of an eye, Julian dashed toward Ashley, but upon meeting her gaze, he abruptly changed direction at the last second, shielding Camille beneath him. Bang, as excruciating pain struck Ashley felt nothing but bitterness, just to avoid revealing his feelings for her. Was he really willing to disregard her life? When I woke up again, the first thing I saw was a stark white ceiling. Ashley struggled to turn her head. The hospital room was empty. You're awake. A nurse came in to change the floor. You've been unconscious for 2 days, but fortunately, it's just a mild concussion. Who brought me here? Ashley asked, her throat parched. Your husband. The nurse said while adjusting the 4 drip, was frantic when you were covered in blood. He nearly turned the whole hospital upside down, but for some reason, as soon as the doctor said you'd wake up soon, he rushed off, saying he had urgent business. How strange. Ashley closed her eyes, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Not strange at all. After all, he would never reveal even the slightest hint of his true feelings for her in her presence. For the next few days, Julian never showed up. It wasn't until the day of discharge that Ashley saw him again. He appeared at the hospital room door with Camille holding his arm, her face glowing. Sister Ashley, you recovered so quickly. Unlike me, I've been frail and sickly since childhood, just a slight cold. And Julian gets all nervous, Camille cooed, insisting on bringing me to the hospital for a checkup. Ashley calmly packed her luggage without even looking up. Julian kept staring at her, as if trying to detect some emotion on her face. It's perfect timing to take you back with me this time. Camille's place is being renovated, so she'll be staying with us for a few days, he suddenly said. Oh, Ashley zipped up her suitcase. Whatever, after all. Once the 1-month divorce cooling-off period ends, they will have no further connection. Who he wants to move in has nothing to do with her anymore. Seeing her indifferent expression, Julian's face instantly darkened. After returning to the villa, Julian seemed to deliberately act out of spite, flaunting intimacy with Camille right in front of Ashley. No matter how much he provoked, Ashley remained unmoved. During dinner, Julian personally peeled shrimp for Camille and fed it to her lips. Ashley mechanically chewed the food, which tasted like wax. Ah, Camille suddenly screamed, scratching her arm. It's so itchy. Ashley looked up and saw large red rashes rapidly spreading across her neck. Her breathing becoming labored, Julian immediately scooped her up. Call the doctor. The private physician arrived quickly and diagnosed it as a peanut allergy. Julian summoned the servants with a dark expression, his voice chillingly cold. How many times have I said that Camille is allergic to peanuts? Why was there peanut butter in the dinner? The servant lowered her head, fingers nervously twisting the edge of her apron, her eyes darting furtively toward Ashley. It was the madam who insisted I do it. I'm sorry, sir, I'm just a worker. Ashley stood up in shock, the chair scraping against the floor with a harsh sound. When did I? Madam, there's no use denying it. The servant suddenly raised her voice to interrupt. You said it yourself, you couldn't stand Miss Camille moving in. You were jealous of how well the master treated her, so you told us to teach her a lesson. Ashley, Julian's voice was icy, as if the temperature in the entire restaurant had dropped. He approached step by step, the sound of his leather shoes against the marble floor unusually clear. You've been quiet since the day at the Civil Affairs office. I thought you'd finally learned your lesson, he said, looking down at her with a piercing gaze that seemed to see through her thoughts. I never expected you'd set your sights here instead. Ashley was about to retort when she suddenly froze. She clearly saw Julian's lips curve slightly upward, though fleeting. That hint of a smile was undeniably real. Since you dared to make Camille allergic. Julian turned and took a bottle of strong liquor from the wine cabinet, the glass bottom tapping the table with a crisp sound. Then you should get a taste of allergies too. Ashley felt her whole body go cold, her back pressed against the icy wall. He had always known she was allergic to alcohol. 2 bodyguards pinned her shoulders on either side, their rough fingers digging into her flesh with painful force. The strong liquor burned as it hit her throat, a searing heat spreading from her mouth all the way down to her stomach. She coughed violently, tears streaming uncontrollably, yet they still forced nearly half the bottle down her throat. Soon, the familiar sting began to rise from deep beneath her skin. Her neck and arms began to break out in large red rashes. Her breathing grew increasingly labored, and the scene before her eyes started to blur. Before darkness completely engulfed her, Ashley saw one last thing. Julian standing against the light, the faintest hint of a curve at the corner of his lips. He was smiling. He was actually smiling. When I woke up again, only a dim yellow wall lamp was lit in the bedroom. Julian sat by the bed, his slender fingers flipping through documents, and only looked up when he heard movement. Awake, he closed the file, his tone as casual as if discussing the weather. "Don't do this again." Ashley struggled to prop herself up, her throat burning with pain. She looked at Julian's visibly softened expression and suddenly understood something. Feeling utterly devastated in an instant, he didn't care at all whether Camille was allergic or not. What he cared about was her recent coldness toward him. And what he enjoyed was seeing her jealous over him, just like those love letters locked in the safe had written. He loved seeing her go crazy for him, lose her rationality for him. Unfortunately, this time, she wouldn't play this game with him anymore. 15 days left. In 15 days, they would officially divorce, cutting all ties. 2 days later, Camille's design won the Gold Award. Julian specially hosted a grand celebration banquet for Camille, under the crystal chandelier. He stayed by Camille's side the entire time, shielding her from toasts and adjusting her dress, displaying an almost unbelievable tenderness. The guests whispered among themselves, saying Mr. Julian treated his childhood sweetheart so well yet was so cold to his wife. If it weren't for Ashley humbly salvaging their relationship every time, this marriage would have ended long ago. Ashley stood in the corner, swirling her champagne glass, turning a deaf ear to these murmurs. Halfway through the banquet, she walked alone to the artificial lake for some fresh air. The night breeze was slightly cool, dispersing some of the alcohol's effects. "What's the matter? Finally had enough?" Camille's voice came from behind. Carrying the triumph of a victor, she walked over in high heels to Ashley, her red lips curling into a mocking smile. "If I were you, I'd have had the sense to leave long ago." Ashley couldn't even be bothered to look at her. "Move. Who are you trying to fool with that act? Chasing Julian for 4 years, married for 3, and still couldn't get him to spare you a glance. How pathetic." Camille sneered. "Want to bet, even if I pushed you down right now, he wouldn't so much as look your way." No sooner had the words left her mouth than Ashley felt a powerful force slam into her. Plop. The icy lake water instantly submerged Ashley's nose and mouth. She struggled to call for help but only swallowed more water. As her vision blurred, she saw a figure rushing frantically towards her and leaping into the lake without hesitation. "Ashley!" Julian's voice carried an unprecedented panic as he frantically swam toward her, his arms tightly gripping her waist. Ashley vaguely saw his eyes in that moment. The fear and urgency within them felt so real that it left her momentarily dazed. Standing on the shore, Camille was completely stunned, unable to believe her eyes. The same Julian who had always been indifferent to Ashley was now jumping into the lake like a madman. He held Ashley as if protecting some long-lost treasure. "No, this can't be. She must have seen wrong." After being rescued ashore, Julian knelt on the ground performing CPR on her, his slender fingers trembling uncontrollably. Only when she coughed up some water did he finally let out a relieved sigh. But the next second, his expression suddenly froze, as if he had just realized something. He stood up, quickly suppressing all emotions, and resumed his cold and detached demeanor. "You fell down just by attending a banquet." Ashley sat on the ground, drenched, her fingers tightly clutching the wet hem of her dress, yet her voice was unusually clear. "I didn't fall. It was Camille who pushed me." Camille immediately teared up, shaking her head desperately. "Ashley, I didn't. How could you accuse me like this?" "Fine," Ashley sneered, trembling as she pulled out her phone from her pocket. "Since you won't admit it, let the police handle it. Attempted murder is serious enough to land you in deep trouble." Her finger had barely touched the dial button when Julian grabbed her wrist. "Enough," he said in a low voice, his grip so tight it nearly crushed her bones. "Camille didn't do it on purpose. Stop making a mountain out of a molehill." Ashley jerked her head up, unable to believe her ears. "She almost killed me. You're standing right here perfectly fine." Julian raised his voice, narrowing his eyes in warning. "Stop messing around." Ashley suddenly felt utterly absurd. She knew Julian needed Camille as a pawn to provoke her, but for this ridiculous game, he didn't even care about her life. "I'm not joking," she said word by word, her fingers firmly pressing 110. "I must call the police." "I said enough." Julian suddenly raised his voice, snatching her phone. "You're not calm right now. Go back and think it over." With that, he waved for the bodyguards. "Take her to the confinement room. She can come out when she's figured things out." Ashley struggled violently as the bodyguards dragged her toward the confinement room. "Julian, are you insane?" she shouted hoarsely. "She's trying to kill me, you know that." Her nails clawed bloody streaks on the bodyguard's arm, and her high heels fell to the ground during the struggle, but the bodyguard's strength was overwhelming. She was like a butterfly with its wings pinched, fluttering helplessly to no avail. As the door of the confinement room slammed shut, Ashley's pupils abruptly contracted. The tiny room, less than 3 square meters, had no windows. Darkness swallowed her instantly like a tidal wave. "Let me out," her voice began to tremble. Claustrophobia gripped her throat like an invisible hand. She remembered the time when she was 10 years old, locked in the basement by her stepmother for 3 days and nights. The despair of being abandoned by the whole world swept over her again after so many years. Ashley huddled in the corner, her nails digging deep into her palms. In the darkness, the sound of rats scurrying past made her bite her lip hard. Afraid to make a sound, time became indistinct. It might have been an hour. Or it might have been an entire day. She refused to eat any of the food delivered, and the water cup was knocked to the ground. Her throat was as dry as if on fire, but compared to the physical pain, the psychological torment drove her closer to breaking. The next day, when the door of the confinement room finally opened, the blinding light made Ashley instinctively close her eyes. Still pursuing this, Julian's voice came from above. She weakly lifted her head and saw the man's silhouette standing against the light. A day apart, he was still impeccably dressed in a suit, every cuff meticulously in place. Meanwhile, she looked like a madwoman, disheveled and utterly wretched. Ashley suddenly laughed, laughing until tears streamed down her face. "No more questions." Her voice was as light as a feather. "I won't pursue anything anymore." She only wanted freedom, away from Camille, away from Julian. Away from this soul-devouring cage. Julian frowned at her unusual reaction, an inexplicable unease rising in his heart, but soon, his expression returned to indifference. "Remember what you said." He turned and walked away. Not seeing Ashley's resolute gaze, Ashley staggered back to her room. Collapsing onto the bed and burying her face deep into the blanket, she thought she had no tears left, yet they silently soaked the pillow. She curled up like a shrimp, every breath laced with pain. She lay in a daze like this all day, and it wasn't until the next day that she barely managed to get up. Mechanically eating a little and drinking some water, her phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from the university class group chat. "Class reunion tonight at 7 p.m., Crown Hotel, everyone who can make it, come." She stared blankly at the screen. "Since I'll be leaving soon anyway, and probably won't see these classmates again, let's consider this a farewell." The Crown Hotel was brightly lit. Ashley applied light makeup to cover her puffy eyes and chose the simplest white dress. "Ashley." Her college roommate Linda waved at her. Over here, several old classmates gathered around a table eagerly asking about her recent life. Linda winked mischievously. "Back then, you chased after the school heartthrob Scott so fiercely. Did you ever catch him?" Several classmates nearby also cast curious glances. Ashley's fingers paused slightly. "Back then." She had pursued Julian with such fanfare that the whole school knew about it, but Julian only agreed to be with her after graduation, so very few people knew they were together. Not to mention back then Julian found weddings troublesome and didn't even have a ceremony. "Didn't catch him," she said softly, forcing a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. If she could do it over, she'd rather have never met Julian. "Oh my God. Even someone as beautiful as you couldn't win him over." The classmates exclaimed. "Julian has such high standards. Don't be sad. I have a few quality bachelors here." Linda pulled out her phone. "Let me introduce them to you." "Introduce who?" A deep, icy voice came from behind. Ashley shivered and turned to see Julian standing not far away with Camille. He was dressed in a meticulously tailored black suit, the diamond tie pin on his necktie sparkling under the light. "Scott." "Julian." The classmates were stunned. Camille held onto Julian's arm. Her bright red dress dazzlingly beautiful, their appearance instantly became the center of attention. "Is this your girlfriend?" someone cautiously asked. Camille lowered her head shyly. Julian didn't deny it. The crowd immediately erupted in teasing cheers. Of course the school heartthrob would pair with a stunning beauty. They're such a perfect match. Ashley lowered her head to drink water. Pretending not to hear, Julian's gaze remained fixed on her, sharp as a knife. The atmosphere in the private room grew lively again as classmates gathered in small groups to catch up. Someone suggested playing Truth or Dare. After the bottle spun a few times, it pointed unmistakably at Camille. "I choose Truth or Dare," Camille said sweetly, her eyes glancing toward Julian. "Kiss a member of the opposite sex present for 10 seconds. As the punishment was announced, the private room erupted in cheers. Camille blushed, her fingers twisting the hem of her skirt. But she walked toward Julian without hesitation. Julian lounged lazily on the sofa, yet his gaze drifted over the crowd, landing on Ashley in the corner. She was absorbed in her phone, completely indifferent to the scene. Julian's gaze suddenly turned icy cold. Julian. Camille was already standing before him, biting her lip shyly. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Julian suddenly reached out, clasped Camille's head, and fiercely kissed her. Whoa! The screams nearly lifted the roof. The kiss lasted far longer than the required 10 seconds, Julian even deliberately making suggestive wet sounds. Ashley finally looked up, but only gave a calm glance before returning to scrolling on the phone. Julian's expression grew even darker. In the following days, he became even more excessive in flaunting his affection with Camille, feeding her, holding her waist, whispering in her ear, but every few minutes, his gaze would involuntarily drift toward Ashley. Yet she remained completely indifferent. After the party ended, Ashley went to the restroom to touch up her makeup. Just as she stepped out, she was cornered by Camille at the hallway turn. See this? Camille waved her phone, the screen displaying a photo of her passionately kissing Julian. Julian likes me. Be smart and file for divorce already. Don't shamelessly beg for reconciliation again this time. Ashley couldn't even be bothered to glance at her, turning away immediately. Camille was infuriated by Ashley's indifferent expression. Her carefully orchestrated act felt like punching cotton, utterly ineffective. Gritting her teeth, she raised her hand, about to slap Ashley, when suddenly, familiar footsteps echoed from the hallway. Her expression shifted instantly as she changed her movement. Slap, slap. The crisp sound of slaps echoed in the bathroom. Camille violently struck herself twice, her fair cheeks immediately swelling red. The next second, the bathroom door was flung open. Julian. Camille burst into tears instantly, stumbling into Julian's arms. Ashley, she hit me, she sobbed intermittently. Just because I was playing a game with you earlier. Julian held Camille close, but his gaze remained fixed on Ashley. He had been puzzled all evening by Ashley's lack of reaction to his intimacy with Camille. But now he finally understood. She had been silently seething with jealousy. This realization sent a secret thrill through him, yet on the surface, his expression grew even darker. Just a game. Is it really worth getting this jealous over? Julian said coldly. Besides, we're divorced now. Who I'm with and what I do is none of your business. He stared at Ashley's pale face and said word by word. Ashley, hurting Camille won't help. If you want to reconcile, show some sincerity. I didn't hit her, she said calmly. She was the one who. Enough, Julian cut her off. Since you're so fond of playing these games, you can reflect on your actions here tonight. Bang! The door was slammed shut, followed by the distinct sound of the lock engaging. Ashley pounded fiercely on the locked door, her palms turning red and numb from the impact. After what felt like an eternity, the lock finally emitted a sharp click. She breathed a sigh of relief, but as she turned to leave, 3 thugs blocked her path in the dead end of the corridor. The leader, a guy with dyed blonde hair, grabbed her by the hair and snarled, "So you're Ashley?" "I'm not." Ashley sensed something was wrong and tried to flee, but a heavy punch landed in her abdomen. The excruciating pain instantly doubled her over, only for another assailant to yank her upright by the hair. Smack! A slap sent her ears ringing as blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. Pretty face, but no shame at all. The blonde guy pinched her chin, slapping her cheek with his other hand in a mocking manner. "Today, we're gonna teach you a lesson." Fists and leather shoes rained down on her like a storm. Ashley curled up on the ground, instinctively protecting her head. A sharp crack came from her ribs, the pain so intense her vision went black, yet she bit her lip hard, refusing to let out a single sob. "All right, stop before you kill her." One of the thugs finally spoke up to stop them. Miss Camille said, "Just teach her a lesson, that's enough." The sound of footsteps gradually faded away. Ashley collapsed onto the cold floor, every inch of her body screaming in pain. She tried to move her fingers, only to find even this simple motion sent cold sweat streaming down her back. From the end of the corridor came Camille's triumphant laughter. "Let's see if she still dares to act so arrogant." Ashley struggled to turn over, lying on her back as she stared at the blinding ceiling light. A drop of blood slid down her temple, yet she suddenly smiled. "Julian, is this what you wanted? You claim to love me, yet you want to see me suffer, see me humiliated, see me wishing for death. Fine, you win, but this is the last time." Ashley dragged her bruised body home just in time to hear Camille's coquettish voice drifting down from the second floor. "Julian, there's thunder tonight, could you tuck me in?" She held onto the stair railing, breaking into a cold sweat with every painful step. Julian was about to refuse, but the words died on his lips when he caught sight of Ashley at the stair landing. He suddenly changed his answer. All right. He wrapped his arm around Camille's waist and led her into the master bedroom, not even sparing Ashley a glance. Ashley forced a bitter smile and dragged her exhausted body back to the guest room. For the next few days, she stayed indoors, fully focused on preparing her submission for the design competition. This was the career she intended to revive after her divorce. Once, she had been the most talented student in the design department, and her mentor said she would undoubtedly become a leading figure in the design world. Until that day, Julian caught sight of a male colleague bringing her home. Quit your job, or we're getting a divorce. He threw out these words with a cold expression. Ashley didn't hesitate to choose resignation. And now, she could finally pick up her paintbrush again. Just as she was fully absorbed in perfecting her design draft, the door suddenly swung open. Julian walked in with Camille, his gaze falling on her design sketches, his expression instantly darkening. I've told you I don't like you doing these things. He snatched her drawing pen away. If you still want me to agree to withdraw the divorce application, don't touch these. Ashley looked up at him, suddenly finding it ridiculous. Did he really think he could still threaten her now? But she said nothing, silently putting away the design draft. Julian thought she had conceded. Satisfied, he left with Camille. Camille paused briefly to glance at the design draft before leaving, a fleeting look of admiration flashing in her eyes. 3 days after submitting the design draft, Ashley received a call from the organizers. Miss Ashley, your work is suspected of plagiarism. If you cannot provide proof of originality, we will have to disqualify you from the competition. What? Ashley couldn't believe it. Who did I copy? It's identical to the submission by emerging designer Camille. She's currently a rising star in the industry, so it's impossible for her to have copied you. Therefore, we have no choice but to take action against your entry. Ashley instantly recalled the look in Camille's eyes when she saw the design draft that day. She hastily said, I have the original manuscript to prove it. After hanging up the phone, she searched the entire room but couldn't find the original manuscript no matter how hard she tried. Looking for this, Camille's voice came from behind. Ashley turned around abruptly and saw her holding the original design manuscript in her hand. How did it end up with you? Because I said I liked it that day. Camille waved the manuscript triumphantly. Julian gave it to me without hesitation. She leaned close to Ashley's ear and whispered, see. Julian likes me. Accept your fate and stop thinking about getting back together. Leaving sooner would be better for everyone. Ashley's mind went blank. She rushed to confront Julian, only to receive a cold response. I've told you before I don't like you touching these. If you had just listened and given up, none of this would have happened. She looked at the man she had loved for 7 years, her heart aching as if it were being torn apart. Why is he always like this? Ignoring her preferences, indifferent to her feelings. If it weren't for those love letters, she truly wouldn't believe this man had ever loved her. Ashley knew it was futile to say anything more after losing the original manuscript. The plagiarism verdict was sealed against her. She stumbled back to her room in a daze and shut herself in the darkness, until a phone ringtone yanked her back to reality. Ashley, are you making a comeback? Her mentor's excited voice came through. I saw your work at the competition. Ashley choked up. Teacher, I didn't plagiarize. Of course I know, the advisor said firmly. Your talent is beyond others' reach. How could you possibly plagiarize? She sighed. It's just a pity that back then you sacrificed everything for Julian. I was foolish in the past. Ashley wiped away her tears. I've already filed for divorce and plan to start anew. That's fantastic, the mentor exclaimed excitedly. How about coming to my studio in Paris? All your senior colleagues are there, and the studio has achieved some success now. As long as you join, we'll definitely make you the brightest star in the design world. Me, can I really? Of course you can, the mentor pretended to be angry. I know your abilities best. If you hadn't suddenly given up back then. Ashley took a deep breath. All right, I'll go. I'll leave as soon as the divorce is finalized. As the words fell, Julian pushed the door open and entered, his gaze dark and fixed on Ashley. Where are you going? Ashley quickly hung up the phone, forcing composure. You misheard. Julian narrowed his eyes but ultimately didn't press further. He said calmly, you and Camille have been at odds over the design drafts these days. Tomorrow, I'll take you both to the amusement park to unwind. Ashley subconsciously wanted to refuse, but the words died on her lips. In the past, she had begged him to go to the amusement park, but he always said it was childish. Now, if she refused too obviously, it would only arouse his suspicion. All right, she agreed softly. The amusement park was bustling with noise and excitement. Julian protected Camille the entire time, fastening her seatbelt on the roller coaster, helping her onto the carousel horse, and even feeding her ice cream by hand. Ashley followed behind, like an unnecessary shadow, until Julian stepped aside to take a work call. Camille suddenly grabbed Ashley's hand. "Ashley, let's go on the drop tower." Ashley instinctively tried to pull her hand back. "I'm not going." Julian said we should get along well. Camille leaned closer to her ear. "Are you still upset about the design draft incident from last time? You're being so petty." Curious glances from surrounding tourists, Ashley pressed her lips together, not wanting to cause a scene in public, and reluctantly followed onto the equipment. Click, as the safety bar descended, Camille suddenly leaned in. "Did you know?" Julian said, "Once the divorce is finalized, he's taking me to the Maldives." Before the words could fully land, the ride suddenly jolted violently. The moment the safety harness snapped, Ashley felt a sudden weightlessness. She and Camille fell from a height of over 10 meters simultaneously. The wind howled in her ears as Ashley closed her eyes in despair. The anticipated pain never came. Instead, she fell into a warm embrace. When she opened her eyes, she met Julian's panicked gaze. His arms tightly encircled her waist, his breathing so ragged it was almost alarming. "You." Ashley had barely opened her mouth when Julian jerked his hands away as if scalded. "Wrong person to save," he muttered stiffly, turning to rush toward Camille, who had fallen to the ground. "Camille, immersive translate." In the hospital corridor, a doctor came running urgently. "The patient is hemorrhaging badly and needs an emergency blood transfusion. Blood type is Rh negative, and the blood bank is running low." Julian's gaze immediately locked onto Ashley. "You're also Rh negative." This wasn't a question, but a statement. Ashley leaned against the wall, blood still seeping from her knee wound. She looked at Julian and suddenly understood his intention. "Donate blood." Julian took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "And I'll agree to withdraw the divorce petition." His breath brushed against her ear, carrying the familiar scent of cold fragrance. There was a time when such closeness would make her heart race. Now, all she felt was the chill in her heart. When the nurse brought the blood transfusion consent form, Ashley signed it without hesitation. She knew that if she refused, Julian would definitely become suspicious. She couldn't take the risk, nor could she let him discover the plan to go to Paris. As the needle pierced her vein, Ashley turned her head and watched her blood slowly filling the blood bag. 1 bag, 2 bags, no more extraction, the nurse suddenly exclaimed. "She's reached her limit." Ashley felt waves of darkness before her eyes, with a buzzing in her ears. In a daze, she saw Julian frowning by the bedside, his lips moving, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. The hospital's white walls stung her eyes. Ashley, after the blood transfusion, the doctor insisted she be hospitalized for observation, yet Julian never came to see her, not even once. Her phone kept vibrating. Photos sent by Camille, Julian feeding her porridge in the photo, Julian keeping vigil by her hospital bed in the photo, Julian a photo of her stealing a kiss on his cheek while he was asleep, Ashley deleting them one by one. Her heart no longer stirred. When the heart dies to the extreme, even the sense of pain disappears. On the last day of the divorce cooling-off period, Ashley woke up early. Sunlight streamed through the curtains as she packed the last piece of clothing into her suitcase. The ticket to Paris lay quietly in her bag, with a flight scheduled for 3 p.m. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang. Julian stood at the door, impeccably dressed in a suit, as if he had just returned from an important meeting. "Camille is out of danger," he got straight to the point. "I keep my word. I'll go with you to withdraw the application." Ashley gazed at him quietly. "However," Julian added, "if you make another mistake, I'll still file for divorce." Ashley suddenly felt like laughing. There won't be a next time. She's going to live her own life now. The two remained silent throughout the journey. When the car finally stopped in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ashley tightened her grip on the bag strap. "We're here." Julian unbuckled his seatbelt. "Let's get this done quickly. I still need to visit Camille at the hospital." Ashley stared at the familiar glass doors of the Civil Affairs office, her fingers unconsciously rubbing the edge of her phone. She needed to find a way to distract Julian and make sure he didn't follow her inside. Just as she was about to speak, Julian's phone rang. Camille, he frowned as he answered the call. What's wrong? Don't cry, I'll be right there. After hanging up, Julian turned to Ashley and said, Camille is emotionally unstable, I need to go to her first. You go ahead and withdraw the application yourself, then message me when you're done. Ashley lowered her eyelids, hiding the relief in her eyes. Okay. She watched as Julian's car sped away, then turned and walked into the civil affairs office. The familiar clerk greeted with a smile, Miss Ashley, here to withdraw the application again. No. Ashley took out the prepared documents from her bag. I'm here to collect the divorce certificate today. Returning home, Ashley placed the divorce certificate belonging to Julian on the coffee table, then picked up the already packed suitcase. The sound of the door closing was soft. Yet it felt like a knife, severing 7 years of wishful thinking completely. On the way to the airport, the sunlight was beautiful. Ashley rolled down the car window, slowly closing her eyes as she breathed in the scent of freedom filling the air. Goodbye, Julian. This time, I really don't want you anymore. Julian had just returned to the hospital when he heard Camille's voice. Miss Camille, was the person taking care of you these past few days your boyfriend? He's been so attentive to you. Not at all. Julian has always been like this with me. Camille giggled coyly, tacitly acknowledging her boyfriend's words. This kind of thing Julian had heard more than once before. He knew Camille's little schemes, but it would never happen. He would only ever love Ashley. Even if they divorced 100 times, they would always remarry. By now, Ashley should have happily withdrawn the divorce application, thinking of her expression. Julian curled his lips into a smile as he entered the hospital room. Upon seeing him, Camille immediately blushed crimson. Julian, you really came. What about Ashley? If you don't go, won't you really end up divorcing her? Listening to her clumsy words, Julian could hardly suppress a laugh. How could he not know her intentions? She merely wanted to climb the social ladder. If she weren't able to provoke Ashley, Julian wouldn't even spare her a glance. Now that the divorce application had just been withdrawn, and he had had his fill of amusement these past few days, his attitude toward Camille had cooled, and he responded to her with casual indifference. The application has been withdrawn. I didn't divorce Ashley. Sure enough, Camille's expression shifted instantly, from shock to resentment, before she finally forced a nod. So that's how it is. Ashley must have shamelessly begged you again. Julian is perfect in every way. Except for being too soft-hearted. Julian let out a light laugh, not exposing her words. He glanced over. Camille had actually recovered quite well by now. Rather than taking care of her, he wanted to see Ashley's happy expression more. In the past, whenever he agreed to withdraw the application, Ashley would personally cook a whole table of dishes to please him. That kind of cautious yet unrestrained affection made Julian fall for it over and over again. I'm heading back. You stay at the hospital by yourself, he said, preparing to leave. Gone were the tender and attentive feeding moments, as well as those ambiguously thrilling distances. Julian's chill tone instantly threw Camille into panic. Ignoring her still unhealed injuries, she hastily got off the hospital bed. Julian turned around, his probing gaze sweeping over her. Camille felt a surge of embarrassment at being seen through, but how could that be? Julian liked her so much. She composed herself and let out a light laugh. I'll go back with you, just to see how Ashley is doing. Another clumsy excuse like this. Julian hadn't planned to agree at first, as he hadn't spent time alone with Ashley for a while now. He missed the sensation of her delicate, soft body in his arms, missed her deer-like gaze, both innocent and cautious. But since he had just agreed to withdraw the application today, he couldn't let her relax too much either. When the time came, he'd just find some random excuse to send her away, Julian thought to himself, tacitly allowing Camille to follow behind. He went down to the underground garage, ignoring Camille who was jogging behind him, and got straight into the car. Immediately after, Camille pulled open the passenger door. Julian, why are you in such a hurry today? She complained breathlessly. Get out, Julian suddenly said. What? Camille was taken aback, not understanding the meaning behind his words. Get down. Sit in the back, Julian added with a frown. He didn't want Camille to sit in Ashley's spot today. Why, I've always sat here before, Julian, Camille said pitifully, but before she could finish, Julian cut her off directly. Either sit in the back or get out. Sensing Julian's unyielding tone, Camille held her ground for a moment but realized there was no room for negotiation. Reluctantly, she stepped out of the passenger seat and angrily moved to the back. The next second, Julian couldn't wait to hit the gas and sped off. Just thinking about how Ashley must be waiting obediently for him in the living room, Julian couldn't control his emotions. He ran through countless red lights, charging recklessly all the way until he reached the intersection in front of the villa, where he finally stopped and regained his composed demeanor, only the corners of his lips slightly curling. The remaining few hundred meters, Julian drove extremely slowly, as if unwilling to return here. Yet, the moment they reached the gate, he was the first to step out. "We're here, get out," he said, instinctively about to walk straight inside before remembering something and stepping back to wait for Camille. The woman in the back seat was left dizzy from Julian's reckless driving speed earlier. It took her a while to recover before she could step out. She had assumed Julian would go in first. But her eyes lit up as she brightened with joy and walked over to loop her arm through Julian's. "Sorry, Julian. Have you been waiting long?" Julian said nothing, pushing the door open with her. He thought he would see a lavish meal, see Ashley clumsily wearing an apron, going out of her way to please him. He thought he would see her usual tolerance, see her humble yet unrestrained love. But in reality, Julian pushed the door open to find it empty, with nothing inside. The corners of his mouth, which had just curled slightly, instantly drooped down again. "Your injuries haven't fully healed yet. Would you like to stay here today?" He tilted his head gently as he spoke to Camille. In reality, his brows were subtly tensed with suppressed anger. Ashley hadn't shown her usual affection today. He had just agreed to withdraw the divorce petition, and in less than a day, she had already wandered off who knows where. Since that's the case, he'd have no choice but to keep provoking Ashley. Julian had an expressionless face, yet deliberately put on a gentle demeanor, making Camille immerse herself in it. "Thank you, Julian, but I live here. Won't I disturb you?" And Ashley, "You just withdrew your divorce application today. What if you file for divorce again because of me?" Camille chuckled softly, her words precisely what Julian wanted to hear. He snorted coldly, his gaze drifting vaguely toward the room on the second floor. "You didn't do anything wrong. If Ashley is unhappy, she can just move out and live somewhere else." Camille followed his gaze and immediately recognized that the room belonged to Ashley. Her face lit up with excitement, but she quickly composed herself, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "In that case, I'll take the room on the second floor. Is that all right?" Julian chuckled softly without responding, but his reaction, heading upstairs, already made his stance clear. Step by step, he ascended to the second floor and pushed open the door. "Ashley, did you hear that? Camille wants to take your room." The expected scene did not appear. The room was empty, devoid of even her belongings. Julian's expression finally changed. He suddenly remembered that when Camille had last stayed over, Ashley had moved out and never returned. Staring at the now empty room, Julian felt a sudden pang of anxiety. Why wasn't Ashley home? She should have been back by now. She must have been delayed on the way. He forcibly suppressed the inner turmoil and spoke to Camille. "You can move in. It just so happens Ashley hasn't brought the luggage back yet." Camille's face lit up with joy as she eagerly agreed. She planned to purchase all her daily necessities online and have them delivered directly. Considering she might be living with Julian for a long time, Camille deliberately asked Julian for his opinion on every single item. They bought matching couple towels, matching toothbrushes, and even replaced items like bedsheets and duvet covers with new ones. Watching the movers go in and out repeatedly, erasing every trace of Ashley bit by bit, Julian said nothing, but his brows were tightly furrowed. He kept picking up his phone and putting it down again. Ashley hadn't sent him any messages today. Normally, today being the first day to withdraw the divorce application, Ashley would have been unable to resist sending him a long message, but so far, he had received nothing. As long as Ashley came back, apologized, and tried to win him over, he would send Camille away and replace everything in the villa back to how it was. He told himself this, standing in the villa for hours until everything had been replaced by Camille, and the last trace of memories belonging to Ashley had vanished. Only then did his usually perfectly maintained indifference shatter. He didn't care about saving face, his expression dark as he dialed the number. He had already figured out how to start the first sentence, but after the phone rang for a full minute, all he heard was the cold electronic tone. Ashley was the first time not answering his call. Anger surged within him, and he began typing a message to send. "You're not answering my calls, and just after withdrawing the application, you want a divorce again, is that it?" The message didn't go through, he got a red exclamation mark instead. This symbol was so rare that he had to look several times to confirm it was Ashley who had blocked him, not the other way around. In an instant, something crossed his mind, and he dialed the number again, only to hear the same electronic tone. Ashley actually blocked him. What on earth does she want to do? Did I somehow show signs of loving her, making her think she could manipulate me? Otherwise, why would she have blocked me? Julian's face turned icy cold. Before he could figure out the reason, Camille suddenly let out a scream. Julian, so you and Ashley have already divorced? What, divorced? Didn't he and Ashley withdraw the application? Julian's mind went blank for a second, then he looked directly at Camille. The woman wore an unmistakable smile, holding a small red booklet in her hand. In an instant, Julian felt as if struck by something. The impossible thought leapt from his mind. He rushed over and snatched the booklet from Camille's hand. It was actually a divorce certificate. His breath seemed to stop, fingers trembling as he opened the divorce certificate. Inside were clearly printed his name and Ashley's. She didn't go to withdraw the application today. Instead, she agreed to the divorce and smoothly obtained the divorce certificate. Julian's mind went blank. Something buzzing in his ears. While Camille couldn't hide her delight, she understood everything now. No wonder Julian had insisted on bringing her home and having her stay in the room that originally belonged to Ashley, even changing the room's decor. So this was it, he had deliberately hidden this surprise. Julian, so this is how it is. This time, you actually didn't agree to Ashley's request to withdraw the divorce application. Camille's shy gaze met his. But Julian couldn't feel anything. How could Ashley leave him? How could she really agree to a divorce? At this moment, whether it was Camille's voice or the noise of the movers, he couldn't hear any of it. It took him a long time to finally squeeze out a sentence through gritted teeth. Get out. What? Camille didn't catch it. Get out, he roared furiously, startled Camille. She couldn't understand why the man who had been so kind to her just a moment ago suddenly turned so harsh. Camille stood frozen in place, at a loss for what to do. Julian, why are you suddenly like this? Did Ashley say something? However, Julian had no intention of dealing with her any further. He called the bodyguards and had Camille thrown out, along with the movers she had hired. Only when the villa was completely empty did Julian finally let go of his composure. He clutched his head, unable to believe that Ashley had actually divorced him. She loved him so much. Had humbly begged for forgiveness 99 times. How could she agree to divorce him? Julian raised his hand and slammed it against the wall. He refused to believe it. Ashley must be testing him this way. His panicked expression gradually calmed down. Julian called for his assistant. Find me all the footage of Ashley from this period. I want to know what tricks she's playing. If I find out, this time it definitely won't be as simple as filing for divorce. He suppressed his anger as the assistant withdrew. It wasn't until evening that the assistant returned, carrying a USB drive, but his expression was far from positive. Mr. Julian, we've gathered everything, but, what but? This might differ from what you were expecting. The assistant lowered their head and handed over the USB drive. Julian stared for a few seconds before plugging it into his computer. He randomly selected a date and saw that it was the day at home when Camille had an allergic reaction. Initially, he just wanted to know what Ashley had been up to during that time, but as he went through each day, his frown deepened. Not only the allergy incident but even the banquet and other events, it turned out they were all orchestrated by Camille, and Ashley had never done any of it. How could there be jealousy or envy over things that never happened? Julian felt his heart sink along with the realization. Under Camille's false accusations, he had ended up doing so many things to hurt Ashley, and Camille had such audacity. He silently watched to the end. It was today's footage of him parting ways with Ashley. After he left, Ashley walked alone into the civil affairs office to retrieve the divorce certificate. Where she went afterward remained unknown. After quietly watching the footage, Julian felt as if all his strength had drained away. He suddenly realized that Ashley had explained things to him many times before, but he had always dismissed it as her being jealous. Now, looking back, he saw that this time, she hadn't begged for forgiveness like before. Ashley seemed heartbroken from the very beginning. What he mistakenly thought were Camille's secret schemes were actually Ashley's jealousy. Not only did he fail to help her, but he also became an accomplice. Pushing his beloved further away step by step, leaning against the wall, He slowly slid down in exhaustion. The video kept replaying, recounting his crimes, and Julian's heart was filled with unbearable pain. Suddenly, he stood up and, like a madman, threw everything Camille had brought into the room onto the floor. Those couple items, those things Camille loved, it was these that had invaded the room that belonged to Ashley. Julian smashed everything one by one, venting his frustration. But even after destroying every item in the room, it could never return to how it once was. A chill ran through his heart, and he gradually stopped his meaningless actions, yet the turmoil in his heart not only failed to subside but grew increasingly overwhelming, surging like a tide, making him fear that he might truly lose Ashley. No, how could it be? It's impossible. She must be angry with him. He would never divorce her again after this remarriage, once they reconciled. He would never make things difficult for Ashley or give someone like Camille any opportunity to take advantage. The more he thought about the contents of the recording, the angrier Julian became. He called for his assistant. Find Ashley, no matter where she is, and bring her to me. Tell her I'll remarry her. She shouldn't joke around like this. His voice turned cold as he added, also, bring Camille to me. There are some things I need to ask her personally. All right, Mr. Julian. The assistant withdrew, and soon, Camille knocked on the villa's door. She couldn't figure out what Julian was playing at today, one moment kind to her, the next harsh, but she supposed it must be because Ashley had angered him, and Julian still needed her. Camille was brimming with confidence. Hearing the word enter, she straightened her skirt and walked in. Julian, were you looking for me? She flashed a bright and gentle smile, only to see the villa in complete disarray. All her newly purchased items reduced to fragments, while Julian stood at the center, his gaze icy and indifferent. Camille, do you really think you're already the Mrs. Scott of the Scott family? Her hidden thoughts suddenly exposed. Camille paused for a moment before forcing an awkward smile. Julian, what are you talking about? You just divorced Ashley. Let me ask you, do you think just because I gave you a little favor, you can go behind my back and do that kind of thing to Ashley? Suddenly, Julian raised his voice. He was truly tired of giving Camille any more courtesy. If it weren't for Ashley, he wouldn't even glance at this woman, and yet, someone like her dared to secretly play tricks on Ashley. What are you talking about, Julian? What did I do to Ashley? Camille paled but didn't admit anything. Julian let out a cold laugh, having long anticipated Camille's reaction. He grabbed her and dragged her straight into the inner room. The video was still playing, its light flickering across Camille's face. She never expected Julian to have investigated so thoroughly. In an instant, her face turned pale as she floundered to explain. Julian, listen to me. I just couldn't stand how Ashley keeps making you angry and then tries to win you over, so I wanted to teach her a lesson. Before she could finish, Julian coldly cut her off. Teach her a lesson? It seems to me you wanted to drive her away so you could take her place as my wife. Camille, who do you think you are, daring to lay a hand on Ashley? Without Ashley, Camille is utterly useless as a pawn. Gone was the adoration in those eyes, replaced only by coldness. Moreover, Camille even dared to threaten Ashley to divorce him. At this thought, Julian's expression darkened further, sending a wave of fear through Camille. How you treated Ashley, you'll pay it all back. As he spoke, 2 bodyguards stepped forward to restrain Camille. Before she could react, Julian's assistant walked up to her. Julian, what are you doing? Camille struggled in panic, instinctively sensing something was wrong, but Julian said nothing. The next second, the assistant raised their hand and slapped her face directly. A heavy impact snapped her head to the side, leaving her wide-eyed in disbelief, but before she could voice her protest, the assistant's blows rained down relentlessly, striking her face repeatedly until blood seeped from the corners of her mouth, her screams of agony filling the air. Julian, what are you doing? It hurts. Julian. The more she screamed, the harder the assistant pressed, and Julian showed no mercy at all. You dare call him Julian? Without Ashley here, you're nothing. How dare you threaten her? His eyes narrowed, and then Camille understood. Julian was actually hitting her for Ashley's sake. This is why it's for Ashley. Camille was shocked beyond belief. She endured all 99 strikes before the bodyguards finally released her. By then, her face was swollen and red from the slaps, her mouth was bleeding. But what she found even more unbelievable were the words that followed from Julian. Just this isn't enough. What you've done during this time has been far worse. Camille, you've got some nerve. Now that Ashley is truly gone, you're of no use to me anymore. The man's deep voice fell, making her suddenly understand something, but it was already too late. Without even a moment's rest, the bodyguard held down Camille, pried open her mouth, and forced an entire jar of peanut butter into it. Soon, Camille broke out in red rashes all over her body and began breathing rapidly. "Julian, I'm allergic," gasping desperately, her whole body itching and in pain, yet the bodyguard pinned her down tightly, making escape impossible. Forced to consume more peanut butter until her eyes rolled back, nearly dying from allergic symptoms, Julian finally permitted the assistant to fetch the medication. Camille was thrown to the ground, all vitality drained from her body. "This is your punishment for falsely accusing Ashley of causing your allergy," Julian's words echoed like a voice from hell, "and for hiring thugs to bully her. Do it." Camille didn't even get a chance to explain before punches and kicks rained down on her. The bodyguards were far more robust than street thugs, each blow landing on her vulnerable spots. Crack, her ribs broke, she vomited blood violently, weeping and begging for mercy. "Julian, I was wrong, I know I was wrong, please let me go." But the man remained unmoved. "This is just the beginning, Camille, what you owe is far more than this. Before Ashley returns, you must endure all the pain she suffered." With these words, he turned and left, but the bodyguard's actions didn't stop. They continued kicking the person curled up on the ground. After what felt like an eternity, Camille felt as if her entire body was about to shatter before she finally passed out. When she woke up again, she was already in the hospital. Weakly opening her eyes, she saw tubes attached to her arm. She was being drained of blood. Camille wanted to scream and struggle, but her limbs were tied to the bed, leaving her powerless to move. She could only watch helplessly as bloodbag after bloodbag filled up. Dizziness overwhelmed her vision, and her entire body began showing signs of critical distress. "Mr. Julian, if we continue drawing blood, this young lady will die," the nurse said with concern. Keep drawing. This is what she owes Ashley," Julian said coldly. Camille raised her eyes weakly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Only at this moment did she truly understand Julian. His heart belonged solely to Ashley, but if that was the case, what did all his ambiguous gestures and tenderness mean? It was he who never refused. He who refused to believe Ashley. She cried out in anguish, but soon succumbed to dizziness again due to blood loss. Only when the last drop of blood had been drained and there was no more torment left, Julian allowed the doctors to treat Camille. Because it was timely, Camille had no major issues, but the moment she opened her eyes and saw Julian, she screamed as if she had seen a demon. "Julian, let me go, let me go. I know I was wrong. I'll apologize to Ashley, it was all my fault." Julian nodded slightly, a sign of satisfaction and the script he had planned from the beginning. Only if Camille admitted her mistakes and never bullied Ashley again, could she turn back to him. But, it's still not quite there yet. Julian looked at her. "Since you know you're wrong, you can stay in the confinement room until Ashley returns." Hearing this, Camille paused for a moment, then began struggling wildly, screaming and crying. "No, don't send me to the solitary confinement room, Julian, Julian." But her struggles left no room for negotiation. Julian, annoyed by her noise, threw her into the solitary confinement room and tightly shut the door, cutting off her last glimmer of hope. Inside the solitary confinement room, there was not a single ray of light. Eating, drinking, and relieving oneself all had to be done in that tiny cage. Staying there alone for even a day would drive anyone mad. Julian paid no further attention to Camille. He loosened his tie, his brow still furrowed with irritation. "Still haven't found her?" The assistant stepped forward. "Not yet. Sorry, Mr. Julian." With a bang, Julian smashed the vase beside him violently. He paid no attention to the blood oozing from his fingers and spoke calmly. "Then keep looking. Don't come back until you find it." Blood trickled down his palm onto the floor. The assistant lowered his head even further and hurried out. While even the household servants dared not speak loudly, they all knew that ever since Ashley left, Julian's temper had grown worse by the day, and they feared being caught in the crossfire. Julian took a deep breath, ignoring the fearful expressions of the servants, and drove alone to the bar. He booked a private room, ordered a case of alcohol, and drank it one sip at a time. Only this way could he numb the pain in his heart. His brothers knew he had come to the bar and quickly gathered around to sit beside him. "Julian, it's just Ashley leaving, right? She's so dramatic, always begging to get back together, even though you're really divorced this time. Who knows? Maybe in a couple of days she won't be able to take it and will come crawling back. Exactly. Everyone knows Ashley can't live without you, they joked. But only Julian knew the truth, it was he who couldn't live without Ashley. From the moment she started pursuing him, he couldn't leave her anymore. Julian forced a bitter smile and took a deep swig. The people around saw that comforting words were useless, exchanging puzzled glances before finally asking in confusion, "Julian, you've filed for divorce from Ashley so many times, now that it's finally happened, shouldn't you be happy?" His hand clenched the wine bottle, unsure how to articulate the dark, twisted pleasure in his heart every time he saw her clumsy demeanor. He couldn't help but want to watch a little longer, so he deliberately kept her hanging, refusing her advances until after graduation when they finally married. But even after marriage, he didn't break his old habits. He loved seeing Ashley fret over him, only then could his heart feel satisfied. He brought up divorce 99 times, and Ashley pleaded with him again and again, until the 100th time, when he truly lost her. At this thought, his heart felt as if pierced, leaving him breathless, but murmurs began to rise around him. "And I think Camille is quite nice too, obedient and sensible. If Julian really gets tired of Ashley, having some fun with Camille wouldn't be a bad idea." Mentioning Camille, Julian, who had been mostly emotionless, suddenly clenched the bottle in his hand tightly. "Don't mention Camille in front of me," he spoke hoarsely, startling everyone. They all knew Camille was Julian's childhood sweetheart. For so many years, she had always been by his side without ever seeming to grow tired of it. Not only that, Julian's attitude toward Camille was like night and day compared to how he treated Ashley. In the past, some even joked that Julian's true love was actually Camille. And he never refuted it, so why is he suddenly so averse to her now? The private room fell silent for a moment, but someone couldn't hold back. "Julian, did something happen?" "What happened?" Julian let out a self-deprecating laugh. "Ashley is gone. I've searched everywhere but can't find her. The one who forced her to leave was none other than Camille. She's been targeting Ashley right under my nose, pressuring her not to reconcile with me." These words shocked everyone. None of them had imagined Camille could be such a person, but if Julian didn't want a divorce, why did he file for it every time, insisting that Ashley had to beg until he was satisfied before withdrawing the application? The crowd exchanged glances, all pondering this question, but Julian's current state left no room for further discussion. They could only offer him casual words of comfort. In the end, Julian drank all the alcohol by himself, staggering down the road. He took his assistant's car back to the villa. The shattered mess from that day had been cleaned up, but the room remained as empty as ever, with no sign of anyone else, no Ashley. The repeatedly disturbed room had long lost her warmth, and now not even a single strand of her hair could be found. Julian walked in, sat by the bed, and recalled many things, from the first time he got angry. Ashley started trying to please him, and he became addicted to that feeling. Watching the person he liked go to great lengths just to make him smile, Julian felt as if his heart was filled with vanity. Later, his demands grew increasingly excessive, wanting to see just how far Ashley would go for him, how precious her love truly was, even though each time he told himself not to go too far. The moment he saw Ashley, the darkness in his heart became uncontrollable. He wanted to see her kneeling before him, wanted to see her jealous and possessive, wanted to see her even risking her life for him. But now, Ashley has left this ridiculous game, and only then does he realize how foolish his past actions were. If given another chance, he would never have proposed the divorce. Julian sat desolately by the bedside all night. The next day, his assistant approached. "Mr. Julian, it's been 3 days, Miss Camille. If we don't release her soon, she won't make it." Reminded, Julian finally remembered that Camille was still locked in the confinement room. At the thought of her, a trace of disgust flashed through his eyes. If it weren't for her instigating behind the scenes, Ashley would never have been forced to leave. Julian stood up, his eyes devoid of any warmth. "Let's go see her." They arrived in front of the confinement room. As soon as the assistant opened the door, a scream erupted from inside. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Don't lock me up. I know I was wrong. I know I was wrong." Camille huddled in the farthest corner, clutching her head. The confinement room reeked unbearably, but she seemed oblivious, continuously muttering to herself. It took her a long while to realize there seemed to be light in front of her. Camille looked up and saw the wide-open door and Julian standing outside. as if grasping at a lifeline. She rushed over, clung to Julian's pant leg, and wept bitterly. "Julian, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have threatened Ashley. Please let me go. I truly know I was wrong." She had spent 3 days and nights in the confinement room, yet it felt more terrifying than any punishment she had endured before. Sobbing, she pleaded, her face streaked with tears. Looking at this once beautiful face, Julian felt nothing but disgust. He kicked Camille away. "I told you, your punishment won't stop until Ashley returns, since you had the audacity to force Ashley to divorce me back then. You should know today that all of this is the retribution you deserve." He uttered these words without a trace of emotion, leaving Camille staring at him in disbelief. As if confirming that Julian held not an ounce of pity for her, she suddenly broke down. She and Julian had grown up together since childhood. She had loved Julian longer than anyone else. Why should she endure such torment now because of one Ashley? Why did Julian have to look at her with those eyes? Camille curled her lips. Her eyes filled with sorrow. "Julian, do you really think everything is my fault?" The man stared at her intently. "Yes, everything is your fault. If it weren't for you, Ashley would never have left me." Hearing his utterly certain tone, Camille couldn't help but burst into laughter. As she laughed, tears streamed down her face, which gradually twisted into hatred as she glared fiercely at him. "It's not my fault, it's yours, Julian. You knew perfectly well, if Ashley hadn't stopped loving you, she would never have left. You're just making excuses. You don't want to admit you're the one who lost Ashley. Julian, you're the one who drove Ashley away, not me. If Ashley truly loved you, she wouldn't have left. She must have already been planning to walk away. How pathetic, still waiting for her to beg you. But you messed up, actually divorced her, lost her for good, and now you're panicking. Julian, you're the one who drove her away." Camille ignored everything and blurted out all her words. Julian glared at her icily, his face frosty as if looking at trash. He coldly spat out 2 words, "Shut up." Camille disregarded his command and spoke even louder instead. "Don't you still want to admit it? Then let me tell you, no normal person can tolerate you filing for divorce 99 times. Ashley was driven away by you." I said shut up. "Camille, Julian, Ashley were all driven away by you. It's you, it's you." Julian suddenly lunged forward, gripping Camille's neck with such force that the woman immediately gagged and rolled her eyes back. "You're insane, Julian, you're absolutely insane. No wonder Ashley left you." She struggled to speak, feeling the air gradually diminish until she reached the brink of suffocation. "Mr. Julian," the assistant spoke up promptly, pulling Julian's mind back to reality. As he released his grip, Camille slumped weakly to the ground. Julian cast a heavy glance before turning away, leaving Camille's fate to the wind. He returned to Ashley's room, and as he surveyed the space, the weight in his chest grew heavier, fueling an urge to vent his frustration on something, anything. He didn't dare to think about Camille's words. How could it be that he drove Ashley away? How could it be him? He grabbed his coat and headed straight to the bar. Only alcohol could soothe the restlessness in his heart now. Julian didn't tell anyone. Drinking alone, bottle after bottle, until he was nearly drunk. Then, someone walked past him while talking on the phone. "Was the person you saw really Ashley?" "Don't worry, she's already divorced." "Julian, it's quite laughable. Did that spoiled young master really think anyone could endure his constant back-and-forth torment? Ashley lasting 99 times is already impressive." He didn't catch anything else, only the 3 words Ashley. Those 3 words seemed to have a magical power. Jolting him awake, Julian stared fixedly at the person, staggering toward them. "What did you say? Do you know Ashley? Where is Ashley? Do you know where she is now?" His sudden appearance startled the person, who quickly put away his phone and forced a smile. "Julian, what are you talking about? You must have misheard. How could I possibly know where Ashley is?" Julian squinted his eyes and recognized that this was actually his own brother. "Who were you calling just now? I clearly heard you mention Ashley's name. If you don't tell me, don't even think about leaving here today." The accumulated anger over the past days left him with no patience whatsoever. Julian grabbed the wine bottle and smashed it at his feet, his face filled with hostility. It was the first time the man had seen Julian like this, startled. He knew that with the Scott family's capabilities, they could truly prevent him from leaving this place. Resigned, he began to explain the whole story. "Julian, don't get upset when I say this, but I think you're in the wrong. Everyone can see how much Ashley loves you, yet you keep treating her that way. it's no surprise she left you. A friend of mine said he saw Ashley abroad. He likes her and wants to pursue her, so he asked me if you two were really over. I didn't think to let you know, otherwise." The rest of the words, Julian could no longer hear clearly. Ashley is abroad, she's abroad, he found her, instantly. His drunkenness faded, he grabbed the person by the collar, demanding to know Ashley's exact location, and learned she was now in Paris. She went to Paris. Hope ignited within him. He couldn't wait another moment, he had to win Ashley back. He would change his old habits, never again testing her love or hurting her. Julian immediately booked the fastest flight, packed nothing, and rushed to the airport by car. In 10 hours, he would see Ashley again. On the plane, Julian felt restless. Through targeted investigation, he had finally found news of Ashley. It turned out she had gone to a studio in Paris and resumed her work in design. This is possible. As long as she comes back, Julian can directly open a studio for her to play with. Not only that, but he can also get the Scott family to invest, as long as she's happy. If it's just about continuing with design work, he can accept it. As for Ashley's familiar circle, he doesn't want the person he loves to be so close to others. But if Ashley is happy, he can arrange for them to return to the country together. With the Scott family's support, their domestic prospects would surely be brighter than abroad. Most importantly, will Ashley forgive him? For 10 hours. Julian didn't close his eyes to rest. He had already made up his mind. If Ashley doesn't forgive him, then he'll prove to her that his love for her surpasses life itself. As long as she changes her mind, this time, it will be his turn to beg her. No matter the cost, he was willing to accept it. With a nervous heart, Julian stepped off the plane and arrived at the studio where Ashley was currently working. All he had to do was open this door, and he would see her. Julian's heart tightened. Unsure of what attitude Ashley would take toward him, whether she missed him as much as he missed her, or if she resented him, after a few minutes of hesitation, he knocked on the door, which was soon opened by a woman he didn't recognize. "Hello, who are you looking for?" Julian smiled. "I'm here to see Ashley." "Is she in?" "Looking for Ashley? Huh, she's not here right now. Ashley has a date today. If you're here for design work, you'll need to come back tomorrow," the person casually spoke. Yet it made Julian's heart ache instantly. Hadn't they just divorced? How could Ashley already be dating someone else? An indescribable emotion welled up in his heart. He suddenly remembered his friend mentioning at the bar that someone had found Ashley before him and started pursuing her. His fists clenched tightly, wishing he could rush to Ashley immediately and declare to everyone that she belonged only to him. Even if they were divorced, they would remarry and be together again. Leaving no room for anyone else to interfere, he restrained the urge to ask Ashley where exactly she was going on a date and who she was dating, clenched his fists, and left. He stood outside the door for a while, then went to Ashley's doorstep. She wasn't home now, so he would wait until she returned. He could prove to Ashley his sincerity toward her. The days in Paris were scorching hot, with no shade in front of the door. Julian stood exposed under the sun, waiting all day until the sun set. But Ashley never returned. Then, at night, heavy rain poured down, and thunder roared across the sky. In such weather, staying outside could easily lead to harm, but Julian remained in place, letting himself get drenched without moving an inch. But after a full day and night, Ashley still hadn't returned. Julian felt dizzy from waiting. He hadn't rested properly for days, and now being drenched in heavy rain, it was a miracle he was still standing. His breathing became rapid, and before long, he collapsed to the ground. Julian woke up to find himself in an unfamiliar environment. He was disoriented for a few seconds before suddenly sitting up, remembering he had collapsed at Ashley's doorstep. Did this mean she had taken care of him? A wave of joy and excitement washed over him. Julian carefully got out of bed, wanting to sneak a peek at her. Just as he reached the living room, he spotted a busy figure in the kitchen. "This is Ashley." A warmth filled his heart as the feeling of something lost and found again surged within him. He wanted to rush over immediately, hold her tightly in his arms, and tell her how much he had loved her all these years, reassuring her that she needn't worry anymore. But just as he took 2 steps forward, he saw another person in the kitchen who, instead of him, embraced Ashley from behind. "Stop fooling around. I'm still making soup. Surely the soup isn't for your ex-husband, Ms. Ashley. You're already divorced, it's for you to drink." Didn't you say yesterday you wanted to have this soup? Then I want you to feed me." Ashley smiled helplessly. She scooped up a spoonful, blew on it to cool it down, then brought it to the man's lips, watching as he drank. A tender and blissful expression lit up her eyes, piercing deeply into Julian. Ashley, how could she show such an expression to someone else? She used to make soup only for him, whenever he fell sick. Ashley would spend hours preparing a small pot of soup, blowing on it to cool it down piece by piece before feeding it to him. Just seeing him drink it would make her eyes crinkle into a joyful smile. How had this become another man's privilege now? He couldn't believe the scene before his eyes, staring blankly from behind for a long time before finally speaking with a hoarse voice. "Ashley." His voice abruptly interrupted the two people. Ashley turned around. No longer wearing a gentle expression but instead facing him coldly. "Since you're awake, you should leave, Julian. If you collapse at my doorstep again next time, no matter the reason, I won't take care of you anymore." Julian felt his heart ache from her indifference, as if an invisible hand were tightly gripping his heart, making it hard to breathe. Though they had reunited after a long separation, though they hadn't seen each other in ages, Ashley showed no sign of happiness. She even seemed to despise him. Julian suddenly understood this implication, and he was terrified. How could Ashley hate him? How could she be with another man? A multitude of complex emotions surged in his chest. He took several deep breaths before managing to suppress them. "We've only been divorced for a few months, and you already have someone new." Yet the moment he spoke, he couldn't suppress his jealousy and bitterness. Ashley remained silent, looking at the person before her. She truly hadn't expected Julian to find his way here, but seeing him now, apart from a sense of unfamiliarity, she felt nothing else, as if all disappointment and love had been completely worn away in the past, leaving not a trace behind. Even in response to his questioning, she felt absolutely nothing. When she first arrived in Paris, she immediately threw herself into her work. Her mentor hadn't lied to her. The studio was still small in scale, but it was already well established. Within a month of joining, she had familiarized herself with all the work processes. At this time, Kevin appeared. His arrival was completely unexpected, as if he had come specifically for her. Ashley initially suspected his identity, thinking he might have been sent by Julian, but Kevin assured her that he didn't even know Julian. It took several months for Ashley to slowly let her guard down. Yesterday was also her first date with Kevin. However, due to heavy rain, she couldn't return home and had to stay overnight. Unexpectedly, when Kevin brought her back, she saw Julian collapsed at the doorstep. Her first reaction was that he was crazy. Then, she still ordered Kevin to carry Julian into the house. At that moment, Kevin raised an eyebrow at her. "Are you still unable to forget your old feelings for her?" How could that be? She just couldn't bear to leave a living person unattended. Even if it was a stranger, she would extend a helping hand, but after helping, Ashley didn't want to see him again. So when Julian asked, she didn't want to explain anything. "We're already divorced. Whether I'm dating, in a relationship, or remarrying, it's none of your business. Julian, don't stay in my house anymore. You're not welcome here." She spoke as she opened the door. Julian's heart ached even more. He had imagined countless scenarios, but he never expected Ashley to be so heartless. Her attitude toward him was like that of a complete stranger. He stared intently at her, his voice filled with pain. "Ashley, I know Camille upset you before. I've already punished her on your behalf, and I know I was wrong. I've never stopped loving you. Ashley, please, come back with me. I know you must still love me. You're just angry right now. I can wait. I can prove to you that every word I say is true. Ashley, don't abandon me. You clearly love me so much." If it were before, Julian speaking to her like this would have probably flattered her. After all, in their marriage, she had always been the one carefully gauging his moods. Even just to ask for a kiss, she'd have to plead with him for ages before he'd reluctantly grant it. Now he had finally dropped his pretentious airs and stopped playing those meaningless games, but it was already too late. Ashley said nothing, just forcibly pushed him out the door and then slammed it shut in his face. Inside the room, Kevin observed Ashley's expression, and after confirming she showed no particular reaction, he smiled. "Was the soup really made for me to drink, and not to show off to your ex-husband?" Hearing this teasing remark, Ashley couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not that childish, using such things to anger or hurt others. Love is love, and if it's not, then it's not. The soup is for you too. You've helped me a lot, then I won't hold back. I won't leave a single drop." it's all mine, Kevin chuckled lightly, not mentioning what had just happened, as if Julian was merely a passerby who left directly after staying the night. He brought the pot of soup to the table and sipped it spoonful by spoonful. Kevin wasn't lying, he truly left nothing behind. Almost devouring the pot itself, and even the side dishes were completely finished. This attitude made Ashley unconsciously compare him to Julian. In the past, no matter what she made for Julian, he would only take one bite. No matter how much she pleaded, he would never take a second, often making her feel her cooking was unsatisfactory. But now, seeing someone treat her with such care, Ashley couldn't help but smile. Kevin was quite considerate. After finishing the soup, he washed the bowl himself and offered to take Ashley to the studio. She didn't refuse and got into Kevin's car to go to the studio. When her colleagues saw her arriving with Kevin, they all gave knowing looks. She didn't explain much and simply took her seat. Her senior colleague walked over and said, "Ashley, someone was looking for you yesterday. Seems like they wanted you to design something. They left their contact details. Would you like to follow up?" Ashley nodded. Although the studio was now on track, everyone undoubtedly hoped for more orders, so even vague clients like this were within their consideration. Ashley took the paper with the number noted by her senior, and after finishing her current task, she found a quiet place to prepare for the call. The phone rang just twice before it was answered. Ashley didn't expect it to be so quick and paused for a moment, but then quickly regained her professional demeanor. "Hello, this is Ashley from the studio. May I ask if you're considering a design project?" There was no response from the other end, and the silence lingered for a while. Just as Ashley couldn't resist speaking again, a hoarse voice came through. "Ashley, if there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. This kind of game isn't fun, Julian." Her voice instantly turned cold, and just as she was about to hang up, Julian quickly spoke up. "I'm not joking, I have something to design, you know. Jonathan's family needs a lot of collaborative designs, and I want you to do it." Ashley paused for a moment. Jonathan's family covers most domestic products, with annual design expenses alone reaching hundreds of millions. It's an extremely high fee, enough to keep their studio worry-free for years. But Ashley knew very well that this was Julian acting deliberately. There must be conditions waiting for her. She considered it, then spoke up. "What are the conditions?" Julian obviously breathed a sigh of relief. He had never been so nervous before, but now that Ashley was willing to listen to him, it meant there was still room for reconciliation. "Come back to the country with me, just for one day. One day is enough. Jonathan's family has their headquarters domestically. After taking on this project, you'll have to come and take a look eventually." "Right," Ashley agreed. She wasn't that fussy, since Julian was willing to give their studio this opportunity. The important thing was to seize it properly, leveraging the reputation of Jonathan's family. Their studio was bound to skyrocket in the future. She and Julian discussed the time to return home and the specific co-branded design items, chatting for over half an hour in total. In the end, Julian couldn't help but ask her, "Ashley, are you really still angry? I've accepted your dream and agreed to let you continue designing." Ashley let out a mocking laugh. "Julian, what I want to do. You can't stop me now." After saying that, she hung up the phone directly and shared the good news with the rest of the studio. Only a few people knew about her entanglement with the Jonathan family, so most colleagues were thrilled that she had secured such a massive deal. That's the Jonathan family after all. While everyone was celebrating excitedly, the senior quietly approached Ashley and whispered with a hint of concern, "Ashley, would Julian really be so kind as to send us such a big deal? Did you agree to any conditions with him?" Seeing the concerned expression on the other person's face, Ashley felt warmth rise in her heart. If it weren't for her senior's wholehearted help, she wouldn't have been able to integrate so quickly. So she genuinely felt that agreeing to Julian's condition once wasn't a big deal. Ashley smiled. "It's not an unreasonable condition. I just need to personally return to China for the handover. Senior, you don't need to worry." Hearing that the condition was merely coordinating the design content, her senior sighed in relief. Ever since she'd heard about Ashley's past experiences, she had been deeply concerned that the other party might be hurt by Julian again. But just because she wasn't worried didn't mean someone else could let it go. That evening, Ashley ran into Kevin, whose face was full of anxiety as he looked at her, hesitating to speak. "This state is quite strange." Kevin has always been straightforward and never overthought things. Since when did he start showing such an expression? Ashley could guess what he was worried about with just a thought. "Are you really going back to your home country?" Sure enough, those were his first words. Ashley smiled. "Yes, but don't worry, I've already told Julian I'll only be back for a day. After the handover, I'll return immediately. There's no need to stay in the country. The studio is where I want to be now." Kevin still wore a worried expression, as if he had made up his mind about something, and suddenly spoke up. "Ashley, I like you." She blinked, not understanding why he would say such a thing at this moment. Kevin had already confessed his feelings to her before. But Ashley felt she only wanted to focus on work now. Moreover, she lacked the confidence to give her all to another person like she had with Julian, so she had rejected his confession last time. Although she did have feelings for Kevin now, she still believed it wasn't the right time for a relationship. She didn't want to escape Julian only to immediately turn to someone else's embrace. She was just about to speak when Kevin hurriedly continued. "I know you won't agree now, but I just want to tell you how I feel. Maybe it's my lack of confidence. I'm afraid if I go back to China, I might never return. So Ashley, I want to go back with you. I can wait for you." So that's how it was. Ashley looked at his nervous expression and, for some reason, suddenly found it amusing. "All right, you can come back with me, but Julian probably has something else to tell me. If there's any danger, I'll contact you immediately." Kevin nodded repeatedly. The only thing he feared was Ashley getting hurt. On the day of returning home, Julian arranged a private jet to pick up Ashley, and the two sat in the plane in silence. Julian wanted to talk to her, but having been coldly treated by Ashley before, he didn't dare say more, afraid of annoying her and making her unwilling to return. At this moment, just like that moment, Ashley felt a sense of irony in her heart. Before the divorce, wasn't it her and Julian's roles that were reversed? Once it was her being cautious, now it was Julian. She curled her lips in self-mockery, ignoring Julian's gaze, and closed her eyes to rest on her own. A few hours later, they landed domestically. Julian had arranged everything well. As soon as they arrived in the lobby, someone came to pick them up. Their schedule involved visiting the company during the day to handle business matters, and Ashley would represent the studio to discuss specific details with their design department. At noon, they went to a restaurant near the company for lunch. As for the evening, Julian didn't mention anything, but Ashley could guess. The evening was Julian's real objective. She didn't mind and followed protocol to go to the design department for the handover. The department head was very enthusiastic and highly appreciated Ashley's ideas. The two talked for a long time, not finishing their design plans until evening. Julian had been waiting nearby the entire time, showing no sign of impatience. When he saw Ashley finally finish talking, he walked forward. "Let's go to the restaurant. It's bad for your stomach to skip meals." The department head suddenly realized something upon seeing this. "So, Miss Ashley is the wife of Mr. Julian." Julian was about to admit. Ashley denied with a smile. "Ex-wife, Mr. Julian and I divorced long ago." The minister looked awkward. Julian's expression darkened, but he held back and took Ashley to the reserved restaurant. This place was extremely hard to book, requiring at least a month's wait for a reservation. No one knew what method Julian had used, but Ashley didn't care. She sat down and ate the served food attentively, showing no interest in the beautiful scenery outside. But Julian seemed to recall something from the past, the corners of his lips curling slightly. "Ashley, do you remember, you once said you wanted to eat at this restaurant? When we came here, you told me your favorite part was the view. I specifically booked the best private room with a view of the entire city." Ashley didn't even lift her head. "Yes, you only took one bite, called me childish, and said you wanted a divorce. I remember it well, Julian." The atmosphere suddenly turned stiff, and Julian remained silent for a while. "Ashley, I know you hate me now, but I promise I'll never mention divorce to you again, and I won't let you be bullied. Ashley, please trust me one more time, okay?" Outside, the stars were twinkling, and the moon hung high in the sky, a rare and beautiful sight. But if she doesn't like it, she doesn't like it. Ashley won't give herself another chance to be disappointed. She finished the last bite, wiped the corner of her mouth, and stood up. "If that's all you have to say, then I'm leaving." Seeing her still in different attitude, Julian turned pale and grabbed Ashley's wrist. "I understand, I'll take you to see something, and after you've seen it, you can decide whether to leave or not." Ashley nodded. She got into Julian's car. Julian drove very fast, as if impatient for something. He ran several red lights along the way before arriving at their former villa. Pushing open the door, He led Ashley upstairs. First, he opened the door to what was once her room. The interior had been completely restored to how it was before their divorce. Ashley examined everything carefully but made no comment. Julian opened the innermost drawer again and took out a familiar leather pouch. He opened it to find it full of love letters. Randomly selecting one to unfold, Julian reading it aloud line by line. It was the emotion he had buried deepest within. Ashley didn't tell him she had already read them long ago. She remained utterly unmoved as she listened to Julian recite all those years' worth of love letters. The man's eyes reddening, his fingers trembling. "Ashley, do you believe me now? I truly love you. I was wrong before. Give me a chance to make it up to you, okay?" Ashley looked at him and suddenly said, "If I said I'd forgive you only if you knelt here for a whole day and night, would you do it?" Without another word, Julian knelt down immediately. With a thud, his knees hit the ground heavily as he gave Ashley an expectant look. Ashley forced a smile and turned to leave. "But I'm not the kind of person who finds satisfaction in hurting others, Julian. When I say I don't love you anymore, I mean it." She walked away without a second thought, shattering Julian's newly kindled hope. Ashley, he didn't care about his own appearance. Quickly standing up to grab her wrist. Don't go, there's one more thing, just look at one last thing," he pleaded, his voice cracking with emotion. No one would believe this person was actually Julian. Ashley didn't speak, but didn't leave either. Continuing to follow Julian, they walked up to the third floor, where no one lived. There was only a confinement room. Ashley's gaze grew increasingly puzzled, but Julian showed no hesitation as he directed his assistant, "Open the door and get her out." Soon, Ashley understood what Julian meant by his words. The person locked in the confinement room turned out to be Camille. Moreover, her mental state was clearly unstable. Dragged out of the confinement room by several bodyguards, she suddenly exposed to sunlight. Camille screamed and covered her face. Upon seeing that the person outside was Ashley, she frantically crawled toward her legs, breaking down in tears. "Ashley, it's you. It's you. I was wrong before. I'm sorry. Julian never liked me. The one he loves has always been you. I was wrong. I shouldn't have slandered you. It's all my fault." As she spoke, she knelt on the ground, kowtowing repeatedly. Disregarding all dignity and pride, utterly devoid of her former glamorous appearance, the current Camille was unmistakably a madwoman. It was easy to imagine what methods Julian had used to force Camille into such a state. Ashley felt no thrill of vengeance, only fear, but Julian was delighted. He had kept Camille here all this time precisely for this day, to make her personally apologize before Ashley. He smiled. "Ashley, are you happy?" Ashley's gaze swept over him, then over the trembling Camille. "Let Camille go." At these words, Julian's expression immediately turned blank. He couldn't understand why Ashley was unhappy. Camille had been bullying her all along. Didn't she want revenge? Didn't she want to see Camille's miserable state now? Julian had prepared so carefully for this. He thought doing this would make Ashley change her mind. But she still showed no reaction, as if all of this had nothing to do with her anymore. His heart trembled. And suddenly he didn't know what to do or what else he could do to win back Ashley. He was in a complete panic, grabbing Ashley's hand. "Why, don't you want revenge? I've already punished her for you. Ashley, just look at me, please." He was on the verge of tears. He had finally found her. She was right in front of him. Yet Julian felt like he couldn't hold on to Ashley, as if she was drifting far away from him. He couldn't understand, nor could he comprehend, yet Ashley smiled. Her eyes filled with pity. "In your heart, is it only Camille who has hurt me?" Julian opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, Ashley spoke coldly. "No, Julian, it has always been you who hurt me." The man's face turned pale. He wanted to explain, but Ashley continued speaking unhurriedly. "To satisfy yourself, you brought up divorce so many times, just to force me to beg you. Before, to stop you from divorcing me, I abandoned all my dignity, even disregarded my own life. I gave everything I had, and you just enjoyed it all. Julian, it has always been you who hurt me. It was only after I realized this was your way of expressing love that I decided to leave." He was speechless, only his eyes rimmed red. Ashley left once again, right before his eyes, but this time he couldn't think of any reason to make her stay. At this moment, he finally understood. Their relationship with Ashley had ended the very instant he decided to test her with the threat of divorce. As they passed each other, tears suddenly streamed down his face. "Ashley, you once promised to stay with me forever, never to part." Ashley didn't turn around. didn't even pause, her voice softly carried away by the wind. You were the one who left first. Ashley arrived at the airport, intending to return to Paris, but this time she wasn't alone. Kevin was waiting for her. Seeing her approach, Kevin suddenly looked relieved. You're here, has everything been made clear? Ashley nodded. She had said all that needed to be said and done all that needed to be done. If Julian still didn't understand, she wouldn't mind repeating it 1,000, even 10,000 times. After waiting at the airport for a while, she boarded the plane. The plane tickets were Kevin's purchase, and coincidentally, the seats were right next to each other. Watching herself leave the city once again, Ashley's emotions were mixed. She didn't dislike the city. It was just that there were people here she didn't want to see. She let out a soft sigh. At least, everything was finally over. Ashley tilted her head and leaned it against Kevin's shoulder. Feeling the man stiffen, she couldn't help but laugh. Let me lean on you for a while, I'm a bit tired. Kevin relaxed himself, trying to make Ashley more comfortable. It must have been hard, letting go of the past. She responded softly, but I gained a better future. That's right, your future is bright. Kevin chuckled. Ashley also curled her lips into a smile. She quickly fell asleep and, upon returning to Paris, went straight back to the studio. Her life seemed unchanged, everything moving back on track, except that Kevin had become increasingly clingy, demanding a title every day. When the studio reached tens of millions in revenue, they held a celebration party, not only to mark the studio's complete success but also to celebrate Ashley breaking free from the shackles of the past. That day, after having a little wine and looking at her colleagues' faces, she couldn't help but feel moved. Yes, she has completely moved on. She picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one go. After it ended, it was Kevin who took her home. I take you home every day. Yet you won't give me a proper title. Are you planning to keep me hanging like this forever? He muttered under his breath. Ashley couldn't help but laugh again upon hearing this, responding softly with a hum. All right. I'll give you a proper title. The next moment, the man froze. You'll have to take responsibility for what you said, Ashley. If you tell me later you were drunk, I'll say you're irresponsible. Her smile deepened as she hooked her arms around Kevin's neck, pulling him down to kiss those lips. I will take responsibility for you. Let's be together. I'm ready. In an instant, Kevin trembled slightly. He had been waiting for this day for so long. He had never told Ashley that, back in the past, before she married Julian, he had already noticed her, but their paths crossed too late. By the time they met again, she was already married to Julian, leaving him no choice but to go abroad to start his own business. Little did he expect that, after all the twists and turns, they would reunite overseas. Now that she was divorced, he finally had another chance. Ashley always said he had ulterior motives, but what he feared was the fleeting nature of opportunities. Now he can finally rest assured. Kevin kissed her back with her own force, his voice fierce. You kept me waiting for so long, but at least you took responsibility. Ashley smiled. Yes, after waiting for so long, it's good that I finally have you. The end.